Uh, Once again, I start out by the inhale and exhale. Hi there. Welcome once again, everybody, to Cast Iron Wednesday. Those of you who've been here before know the drill. In that every Wednesday, it seems like a number of these cooking channels here on YouTube dedicate their Wednesday to, well, cast iron. And I certainly have no complaints about that. I very much enjoy it. And I guess people do seem to like these because, well, we've got some people who keep showing up every Wednesday for some reason. Hello to Robert Bavoy. Hello, Boiler Honky Dude. Hello, Bookworm73. Hello, Edmund Boyles. And yes, as the title mentioned tonight, this time we're going to really get down to some cooking for once. How about that? I've been doing a lot of talking the last couple of weeks, and let's actually do something. So, as you can see, I've got the Finex cast iron skillet heating up here, and I better bring us in for a close-up and make sure I'm doing this right. There we go. Okay, this is the part I know everybody just loves, the roller coaster ride here. But the end result is certainly worth it. This, of course, is what I get for running a small YouTube channel on a very tight budget. So once again, I very much appreciate everybody who does look at this channel here. But anyway, here's a nice close-up as well, if you have not yet seen a Finex cast iron skillet. This is the number 12 size, in fact. Oh boy, and is this thing heavy too. It is much heavier than a Lodge skillet. Yeah, made by Finex, and this was a Christmas present given to me in 2004, actually 2014, in fact. So this is going on over 6 years old. So, and I've gotten quite a bit of use out of it. And this, as I said, is probably the thickest and heaviest cast iron skillet in my collection, which means it is really, really great for searing. And if I'm going to do if I'm going to make some patties and make some burgers, you better believe this is the pan I'm going to go with. However, before we go with that, I think we had better. I'm starting right away because this is going to take a little while. Namely, just put in wee bit. Oh yeah, be quiet. Wee bit of canola oil. And then we start caramelizing some onions. It looks like a lot of onions, but these things shrink considerably. And I am hoping to have enough caramelized onions here for at least 3 patty melts. And I guess that's the other thing I should say. If you've never had a patty melt, well, as they say, you don't know what you're missing. It is only a little bit different from making a cheeseburger. And those who have, well, as they say, those who know, they know. There is this burger chain called Whataburger that has made a real reputation for themselves for making patty melts. I have never been to Whataburger, unfortunately. It's down south, like around the Texas area or so. And while I have been to Texas on road trips once or twice, I have not yet had the privilege of eating at Whataburger. However, the patty melt is also one of those American icons, the kind that you can pretty much, if you can envision any cheap diner, roadside diner from, like, say, the Great Depression, the 40s and 50s and so forth, there are a few things that you can usually think of in an image from that time. One of which, of course, would be, the seats behind, behind the counter, a bottomless cup of coffee, the waitress, constantly refilling it, and probably making a patty melt. Because, patty melt is essentially a smash burger, a very flat burger made with lots and lots of cheese and served on white bread rather than on a burger bun. So that definitely makes it American style. And furthermore, I felt today would be a nice day to do an American-themed dish because, well, no, I don't get into politics. I learned that lesson about a month ago. However, there's no denying that today, of course, is another turning point in American history as we have inaugurated a new president. And that, of course, means it's time to, well, reflect on this and just, well, let's cook something nice and good and American here. And so really a patty melt is probably one of the best things I can think of. You know, it's something that everybody loves. It's a burger, and it's got lots and lots of cheese on it. So that's about as political as I'm going to get here. As I said, anybody who wants to argue politics, they can go onto Twitter, please. Yes, I am on Twitter, but no, I'm not bringing that here onto my YouTube channel. Let's get back to the cast iron now. Yeah, so far so good. That's the other thing, of course, about caramelizing onions here is that we've got to take our time at it. I mean, this is a nice hot pan here, but I've got to be sure, of course, not to burn the onions, meaning that it's probably going to take at least maybe up to 10 minutes or so, because this, again, is a very thick and hot cast iron pan. Before these onions become caramelized the way they're supposed to be. And that, of course, is where they're practically translucent and they give off this wonderful, wonderful sweet flavor. By the way, if you notice, the onions seem like they are shrinking already. I mean, I put all of those onions in this pan, and yet they already seem like they're taking up less space already. So that's good. They're spreading out, and all we can do is just keep going at it until these things are nice and caramelized. Meanwhile, let me see. Hi there. Just bought a 10-inch Finex. Really like it. Oh yeah, Finex is Finex. I mean, yes, it is extremely high priced, and yet some of those elite skillets are more expensive than this. And this one, you definitely feel like you're getting your money's worth. It has this lovely artistic look to it between the octagonal shape and the fancy wire handle. And as I mentioned, it's really, really thick and heavy. I mean, people say they don't like how heavy and thick a Lodge is. They would hate a Finex. But as I said, I seem to enjoy the really thick and heavy cast iron precisely for that reason. I think it makes for better cast iron cooking in a lot of instances. And this is one of them here. So, Ruth Meow, I can't eat cheese on burgers. Oh, I can only really offer my condolences, unfortunately. On the other hand, I would, well, I know cheese is an essential part of a patty melt, so it's really hard to say otherwise. I mean, the only other options I could think of are probably also dairy. So the best I could say in that case is, well, sometime in the near future, I will try to make up for it, and I will do more of a vegan themed dish. I do not go out of my way to insult vegans and vegetarians, even though there are a lot of meat dishes cooked here, but I do enjoy veggie dishes as well. I mean, I've made ratatouille several times, and that's one of those ones that I think I will probably make live at some point in the very near future. Peg Tooth made it. Hi, kids. Hi, Peg. Got a pass for now. Field skillet dug a little deep in my pocket. Yeah, that's about right. Unfortunately, they are kind of expensive. My dog broke the handles off both of my cast irons. Ouch. My condolences. Yeah, obviously, I guess he must have knocked them onto the floor the wrong way. Well, on one hand, if it's only the handle that's broken off, of course, you can continue using them. On the other hand, I hope they weren't, well, obviously, they would have had a lot of sentimental value, but in terms of collectability, I'm hoping that they are or were something that you could just as easily replace. I mean, after all, again, our choices in cast iron these days are probably better than they have ever been. Not only because even though it can take some hunting, we still can acquire vintage cast iron, but there's a lot of choices when it comes to modern day cast iron, no matter what kind of budget you're on for that matter. I mean, a Lodge cast iron is good for a low budget, and there are a lot of other new cast iron pans, even if most of them are Asian made, that also can be bought at not too high a price. And then, of course, if you get into the point where price is no object, or maybe you get to receive one as like a birthday present or Christmas present. Then, of course, we can get into all of these new manufacturers, ranging from Finex to Field, Stargazer, Butter Pat, Smithy. Quite a few names have shown up recently, it seems like, especially in just the last probably 3 or 4 years or so. I do apologize for clearing my throat. My throat's a little dry, unfortunately. I went on a road trip for work today, and I don't think I drank enough, so I still need to rehydrate myself. So far, I've been lucky, and I have not yet seen any signs of COVID or anything like that. And here's hoping it stays that way. All right, so, but yeah, as I said, even though, again, all of these onions, I'd say they are starting to get there. We do still have a ways to go yet, but it doesn't look too badly at this point. However, what we're really looking for are really caramelized onions. You know, the kind that make your mouth water when you look at them. The kind that are almost translucent. They've got a nice brownish, almost purplish look to them. And of course, they are soft as butter and oh so tasty. Yeah, these do still have a few minutes or so before I get to that point. Fortunately, caramelizing the onions is probably the longest and hardest part of this whole dish. The rest of it is going to go by really, really fast, especially, again, because we're going to be able to do this on a nice hot piece of iron here. Spread this out a little bit. I guess while we're mentioning it, I've got a second pan here, which I'm thinking I may actually have to toast the bread, the grilled cheese part of the bread, in a separate cast iron pan, for the main reason that this pan here is going to be way too hot for grilled cheese. If I try doing grilled cheese on an extremely hot pan that I was doing burgers with, I could very well just burn it. So because of that, I brought out my vintage 7S, in fact, BSR skillet. This is a number 7. And since it's a 7S, it's probably closer to a number 6 in size. So it's kind of unusual in that. But the size fits nicely so that it fits here on the stove right next to this much bigger number 12 Finex. So yeah, I am happy with that. And I'm thinking I'll probably be doing the bread in that pan. Meanwhile, all we can do is just, keep on stirring, not too much, but keep on stirring until these onions reach just the right consistency. Raymond, I made pancakes on an Erie 8 like the one on the back burner. Oh, yeah. Well, this is definitely not an Erie, I will say that. This is actually a made in Mexico Kamal. However, yeah, it is essentially a nice flat griddle, although this one has a nice rim to it. But yeah, those folks who enjoy using those griddles there, you know how wonderful they are, especially for making breakfasts. Technically, you could do it in any skillet. I mean, there's no reason why you couldn't make those same pancakes in just a regular cast iron skillet. And, well, actually, no, there is a difference. The griddle, of course, because it has next to no sides, it's much easier for you to get your spatula onto the griddle so that you can flip the pancakes. It's actually a little harder to do that here because, if the pancake gets close to the edge, it's really hard to get your spatula under it and flip it. So, yes, there actually is a difference. Other than that, all I can think of is Dora from Finding Nemo. Just keep stirring, just keep stirring, just keep stirring. However, if you notice, these onions definitely have shrunk a little bit, even in these last few minutes, in that, again, they are not filling up the entire pan. That's why I made all of those. I chopped up 3 onions, and because we're going to be doing a total of probably 3 burgers, and even so, I hope that's enough. Maybe I might even chop these into 2 small pieces. Maybe if I had left larger pieces of onion, they might not shrink so much. Well, it's too late now, and anyway, it's still going to be nice and tasty. All right. Papa Dan, what are you using? Why are you using the bread in the number 7 instead of the griddle? Well, I could do that actually, but I think the main reason is, as I said, for the space. In that, well, maybe not. I mean, it looks like this griddle here is possibly even a wee bit smaller. So other than that, well, I guess maybe I just didn't consider it, to be absolutely honest. I was looking for an excuse to bring out the BSR. There's no reason why I couldn't just put the BSR aside right now and just bring out that griddle, especially since I have not heated this yet. All right, I think I'll leave it like that. On the other hand, I mean, granted, at this point, there's this little gap here that you may not be able to see very well. Well, we will work on that when it comes to the bread. The bread isn't for another few minutes yet. As I said, it's really caramelizing these onions that's going to take the longest part of this whole session here. That's why I wanted to get all of these done at once so that I won't have to do this again later on during this video here. Still, they're doing pretty good. I think the edges of these onions are starting to see the caramelization that we are looking for. So at this point, in maybe just another few minutes, we might actually be where we want to be. To be or not to be. What temperature mark are you at? On the stove here, at this point, I only have the stove top at a little less than medium, in that if we start at 0, oh, that's hot, 0, halfway, and then back to high, the dial is only right about here, just a little below the halfway mark. Wow, yeah, it just tapped this part of the edge. And yeah, this is definitely hot, all right. I mean, it's not like this pan is too cool. In fact, that's really the trick about caramelizing onions, in that you don't want the pan to be too hot. If you get the pan too hot, well, of course, you'll just burn the onions rather than caramelize them. On the other hand, once these things are nice and caramelized, and like I said, we are starting to see some signs of it now, then I will definitely crank up the heat for when we get down to doing the burgers. The patties have already been shaped. They are resting in the fridge right now. I'll try to save some time at least. So far, so good. And also, for the record, my wonderful smoke detector, I've got the doors closed in the other room so that the smoke detector doesn't go off spontaneously. And meanwhile, the window is open. So hopefully that should take care of the excess smoke that will almost certainly happen. And you see these little bits and pieces here? They are definitely starting to reach that point. All we have to do is be just a little bit more patient. Even Guns N' Roses said, all we need is just a little patience. Of course, you can say that right now. I think if you go into any emergency room, I'd say, we have too much patience. Please, get better, everyone. All right, okay. But things are starting to look good here, so thank you for your patience. Yes, low and slow, and Bookworm 73, it's a Finex. Yes, it is. This is a Finex skillet, cast iron skillet, octagon pan. Yeah, they shape all of their pans like that. I cook my burgers in a Lodge pan that has the grooves in it. Oh, yeah, that is a Lodge grill pan. It keeps the grease off the burger. Yes, you can certainly do that. And you get some nice grill marks on the pan, on the burger, too. So that's one of the best things about having a grill pan. I actually don't have a grill pan because I do have a nice cast iron lid where the underside of it actually is a grill, a nice long grill. So if I wanted to use that, I could. But in this case, I'm only going to be making these burgers about 2 at a time, and I don't need a grill pan of that size, which again is one reason why I just broke out the Finex skillet. However, as mentioned, yes, this is in fact a Finex skillet. For the record, Finex was actually bought out by Lodge going on a little more than a year ago. Lodge, as they say, they merged with Lodge. I do not think we have seen any sign yet that either company has had any effect on the other yet. I know when Finex bought out Lodge, some rather unfair remarks came in about the evil corporation buying up the little upstart because they couldn't trust it. No, because it was hurting them so much. No, I don't think it was anything like that at all. Lodge, number one, and anybody who has dealt with Lodge should agree with this. Lodge is a wonderful company, not just because they're made in the USA, but they are pretty much the opposite or the antithesis, you might say, of an evil American corporation, in that they are proud of staying here in the USA and producing some nice quality product. So regardless of what you may say about Lodge and their rough pans and their and whatever else, and the poor seasoning of their pans, Lodge really is a good company, and they have world-class customer service. And no, they are not paying me to say that. Anyone who has dealt with Lodge customer service, I can practically guarantee you have received world-class customer service there. So for things like that, it's why I say if Lodge bought out Finex, well, more power to both companies. I mean, if, say, Walmart bought out Finex, then yeah, I would think that Finex would not be long for this world. However, Walmart did not buy out Finex. It was Lodge that bought them out. So here's hoping that whatever happens as a result of that merger, and yeah, these onions are getting close now at this point. Whatever happens as a result of that merger, here's hoping we see some good results from it. Remember, that was a big thing of big pile of onions that at first filled up the entire pan. At this point, they've definitely shrunk to probably about half their size or so. We are probably at the point where I'd say in another minute or so, we may very well be done with these caramelized onions. Yeah, and I'm pronouncing it that way in a very poor imitation of the cooking Cajun, Justin Wilson. But still, these onions are doing quite good at this point. Ms. French Twist, cast iron pans do not transfer flavors. Well, I may disagree, only in that a well-seasoned cast iron pan can, in fact, be used for anything. I mean, yes, you can cook fish in the same pan that you cook your you then cook an apple pie, for instance. The seasoning could very well take on some of the flavoring, but I would say in most instances, it's probably not enough to pass it on to the next dish. So yeah, that apple pie is almost certainly not going to taste like fish. If you are really concerned about it, you could actually just put the pan in the oven dry and heat it up to about 400 to 500 degrees for an hour. That will burn any residue on the pan into the seasoning and essentially create a new layer of seasoning. So, I mean, seasoning is not perfect. It's wonderful. And I will not disagree with what you say in most instances. It really does not transfer flavoring. So there are some people, though, who do use only certain pans for cooking fish especially, because, yeah, fish has a very strong odor or scent or taste or flavor. Yeah. Practically anything else that we cook any day, you know, chicken, pork, beef, that's almost certainly not going to pass, going to be heavily absorbed into the seasoning. And yes, you can make desserts or pancakes or eggs or Dutch babies in the same cast iron skillets that you make your steaks and your burgers and everything else with. Yeah, now this is definitely starting to look like some caramelized onions here. I mean, where it's getting to the point where I think my mouth is starting to water at this. Yeah, you better believe the smell, I should say the scent. I mean, smell sounds offensive. The scent of these onions cooking is, oh yeah. I tell you, this is America, all right. And boy, am I enjoying it. All right, what do we have here? Being a BSR Lodge person, that's a nice looking number 7S. Well, yeah, that was a lucky find as well that I found at an antique mall on one of my road trips down south into Tennessee. They didn't know what it was. They sold it for 20 bucks, and I gladly paid that price for a BSR 7S. So I'm quite happy with that. And that's probably the best way of going cast iron hunting. I mean, it's very rare that you come across these kinds of finds, but they can happen. The trick is to be ready if and when one of these pops up out of the blue, because because a lot of times the vendor may not know what they're selling, and that's why if you have a little bit of knowledge, you can get yourself one heck of a score. And that's where a lot of them come. Yeah, I'd say we're probably at the point now, I think, that we've got ourselves some caramelized onions. Oh, yeah, onions. Oh, maybe I'll just soak some butter in this and just eat these onions and then forget the rest of it. No, that's not fair. I will in fact be doing the burgers. But yeah, these are some nice caramelized onions here. Oh yeah. Same bowl as I did those raw onions. So are they going to be contaminated by the raw onions? Yeah, I know. Kind of a lame joke there. That's only because more than once I've been commented about putting things back in the same dish. Whoops, that's not right. Let me try putting it over here. And this is heavy. Oh, boy, is it heavy. In the same dish where I originally had the raw meat. In most instances, I don't have a problem with that because you figure this is thoroughly cooked and it is well hot enough that it's going to kill any extra bacteria that might get onto it from the original dish, which is why I am very little concerned about cross-contamination. However, yeah, this is heavy. There we go. Caramelized onions. And now that we've done that, we start cranking up the heat, meaning that I'm going to go from just under medium to, well, maybe 6 to 7. Because with a good, heavy, thick cast iron skillet, that's really about all you need. Let me say one other thing about a Finex. They do this fancy wire handle. Supposedly, this wire handle here actually helps to, what's the word, radiate or protect your hands from the heat. Well, no, because you don't contact the direct metal underneath it. And so in most instances, this is in fact cool enough where I can put my hand on it and I will not be burned. However, unfortunately, there's a real disadvantage to that. At the end, let me do this. Here we are. At the end of the handle, there is this, it's actually held on with this brass cap here. And regrettably, this brass cap does absorb the heat, and this becomes blazing hot. So this is kind of too small, really, for my hand, in that if I were to try cooking it completely barehanded, I would still burn my hand either from here or here. So it looks nice, but it really, unfortunately, is not as effective as they had wanted it to be. I'm sorry to say that, but that's the honest truth here. While we're heating this up, let's see what else. Dissipate the heat. Yes, thank you very much. My grammar is not what it used to be. Thank you for your help with that. I know what did you get? Coil stays cool, not big enough for a handle though. Yeah, for a hand. Yeah, regrettably that's the case. Well, by seeing the oven mitt, I'm gonna guess the Finex handle is hot. Yes, as we explained here, unfortunately. William Hurd, I have my mom's old number 7G 1940s vintage. It's cracked, still cooking it. Well, best of luck. The risk, unfortunately, of cooking in a cracked pan is that the heat can actually cause the crack to expand. You know, the constant heating and cooling of the pan each time you cook in it. So there is a risk involved. That's entirely up to you. I can't dictate your kitchen actions to you, but I will only say that there can be a risk involved. Coiled, let's see. The handle does get a bit toasty. Yes, I can't remember. It couldn't have been too impressive. Oh, yeah, you notice how this thing is definitely already heating up to this point, which means time to start talking, and let's get down to the next step. Give me a second here. I got to get the meat out of the fridge. And here we are. The thing about these patty melts is that we're definitely using flat patties here. You know, some people go for balls or really thick burgers. With a patty melt, you want to go for a flat patty, or even as they like to do these days, a smash burger. So it's definitely going to be thin, and it should cook pretty quickly, which of course is what we want. At this point, all I need to do is season one side of each of these with a little bit of kosher salt. Not too much. And that's about all I'm going to do at this point before the meat hits the fan or pan. And away we go. I'm not going to heavily push on these until we are getting ready to flip them. That's the other thing about flipping. I'm not a burger expert, unfortunately. I'm not one of those short order cooks who makes 30 or 40 burgers a day. So like everything else, I've got a lot of practice to do on this yet. One thing I have learned, though, is that if you want to do a smash burger or squash it, you don't smash it immediately after it goes into the pan. You do have to wait about a minute or so before you press down on it. That way it will not collapse the entire burger and the whole thing won't come apart. Nice thing about a flat patty is that you can see it quickly become cooked on the underside here, in that you can see that the edges of the meat are starting to turn color already. So let me see. Okay, yeah, it's definitely flat. I'm only checking to make sure there are no air pockets here, but this is looking pretty good. And the nice thing is, this time there was only a tiny bit of extra oil left in the pan, but as you can see, that was more than enough. These things are definitely releasing more than enough liquid here. So it's only a matter of flipping them when we think they are ready. Meanwhile, had my first patty melt at Manuel's in Atlanta, Georgia. Love them. I'll bet it's a lot better than what I'm making here. Last thing I got is a gate mark number 6. That Snoop is my dog, but pretty early and so light. I would say 1880 at the latest. Well, that's certainly likely to be the case. A lot of those gate mark pans are so incredibly thin and light because they were really meant as throwaway items. You know, it's like the idea was you would buy yourself a wood burning stove, and with the stove you would get a complimentary set of cookware. You'd get a skillet, maybe a second skillet, maybe a griddle, maybe even one of those stovetop kettles. You know, they call them bulge kettles. All of those were complimentary, and they came with the stove. But because they were complimentary, they were throwaway items. So as a result, they were made very cheaply. That's why they were very thin and very light, and they had the gate mark on the bottom. And really, almost none of them had a manufacturer's mark because the manufacturers didn't care. They were throwaway items in those cases. And strangely enough, in a number of those cases, well, it seems like those throwaway pans have outlasted the stoves. I think we are probably getting close to the point where we can flip. Oh yeah, this is definitely starting to feel a little tender already. So, There's one. Oh, check out that crust, man. Oh, yeah. Huh. And two. Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm happy. And all I got to do now is just put a little bit more salt. And that's all I'm seasoning with. In this case, is what they say is we're going to let the meat do the talking. I did not season this with all of the garlic and the seasonings and who knows what. All this is just plain 80-20 beef. And all I've done is, as you can see, added a little bit of kosher salt on it. Oh yeah, this is not going to take long at all, is it? Actually, yeah, maybe I think I will. I think I will put the first bit of cheese on it right now. Because really, by the time the cheese is melted, I'd say this thing will be done. Come on, where's my... There it is. Don't look now, but we're using good old American cheese. Wrapped foil cheese. You know, the kind that a lot of these purists say, how dare you use that awful processed cheese stuff? Well, let me reassure you, yes, it is real cheese. For years, I really did eat those artificial lard cheese things that did not have any milk in them. I learned my lesson years ago. So this is still real American cheese. In fact, all I need to do now is throw on a lid, but only for a few seconds. And to go with a Finex pan, we got to have a Finex lid. And this is not going to take long at all. So let me clean up some of my mess and leave this extra wax paper and this foil wrap. But yes, for the record, that is a Finex lid. And there has to be a unique shaped lid to fit on that unique shaped pan. Anything cooked in oil or fat is great for cast iron, definitely. So, yeah, I'll just have a salad. Well, I know for a lot of people, this is a salad. Yeah, actually, I wouldn't mind seeing Mrs. Collection myself. Okay, and notice it's only been a few seconds, and yet this is good and melted. So, look at that. We've already, actually, I made a mistake. I should have started heating up this other griddle already. But nonetheless, here's a start. Could just chow into these patties right now. Oh, man. However, now that we've done that, actually not quite done yet. I'm going to be trying something with this pan, especially since we still have a little time yet at this point. I mean, really, it's like, even though we're about 40 minutes in, usually I seem to let these things run for about an hour or so, so we have time yet. Meanwhile, though, on the other hand, on the griddle there, I've got this thing heating up. I did make a mistake. I really should have heated that up earlier. My bad. Well, let me see. While we're doing that, two things I think I should do, and one is to prepare the bread. For the record, we're using white bread, but we are using Texas toast bread, the kind with the really thick slices. Hardy har har. The other is that for these patty melts, going to be doing a trick that some people do when they make their grilled cheese, and that is, of course, you use mayo rather than butter on the bread. And yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this. Smoke. Oh yeah, that smoke is coming from the bottom of the griddle. That's why. Okay, well, we are getting somewhere already. Let me quickly check the temperature on this thing. It still only says about 150 to 200. Part of it is about 225 and 230, so it's still not hot enough yet. I've got to heat this up a little bit more yet. Sorry to take up your time, folks. I'm doing this as quickly as I can. I like dark rye. Yeah, that's also nice. No mayo. No mayo. Sorry. I know I disagree, but not everybody's taste is the same. I better turn this down, meanwhile, this one, so that this grease doesn't catch on fire or anything. That would not be good. Actually, what I probably should do is drain some of this extra grease, just to be sure. So, let's dig out a metal utensil. Let's just say once I learned the lesson that you never drain your grease into a plastic container. I learned it once, never again. Carefully. There we go. And that'll take care of that. I'll just keep this out of the way, nice and safe. But anyway, yeah, the chorus is still going. No mayo, no mayo. Are you supposed to drain the grease between patties to get good sear on the next batch? Yeah, I'd say that would certainly be a good reason for it. Yes, we actually don't want there to be too much grease. Mayo instead of butter for breakfast. My smoke detector would be cutting up. Yeah, actually, I've been doing pretty good, strangely enough. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything at this point. Again, just for the record, if anybody has shown up, besides the fact that this is a Finex cast iron skillet, this, on the other hand, is a comal, a made in Mexico cast iron comal, which is basically another name for a round griddle. And that's what we have here. At this point, I'd say we're probably good enough. So, I hope I don't offend too many people here. When I take some mayo and mayo up the bread. There you go, there's one. And now comes number 2. Thank you, as always, everybody who has been kind enough to sit through this torture here, as I actually do submit these pieces of Texas toast bread to the mayo torture. Oh, good. This is starting to bubble, so I'd say it may actually work. And there's 2. And while we're doing that, let's put a little bit of mayo on the top here, but only a little bit. This is a little awkward, I'm afraid, at this angle. I can't pick it up now. So this is not going as fast as if I were not doing this on camera. If I were not doing this on camera, I'd be able to do this much more easily. But you folks come first. This is for your entertainment. And that way, if and when you get to see me screw up, you get to laugh at me for it. Because I will most likely deserve it. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. There we go. So far, so good. Now from here, we're about to get ready for the next fun moment. And that would be, let me see, hoping I haven't overdone it already. And we've got, nope, not yet. It's still a ways to go yet. So while we're waiting, let's check these comments once again, because we're just here to read the comments. My partner hates mayo, but loves my grilled cheese using mayo. Well, considering mayo really is just fancy, milk and eggs mixed together. Really, that's not that bad. It's really not that bad. If you spend any time in the southern states, you learn to appreciate mayo, whether you want to or not. You can order no mayo, but then you just get a funny look and get mayo anyway. Oh, yeah, that's certainly true. Of course, you can say that at just about any Mickey D's anywhere. I want no pickles on my burger, and what do you think you'll get? You'll get pickles. My late father-in-law once described that as DDM, Dunkin' Donuts mentality. Although you can apply that to a lot of other places in addition to Dunkin' Donuts. Okay, meanwhile, better check this again because, again, I really want to be sure that this does not burn. So how does it look at this point? Starting to look pretty good. I'd say at this point only a few more seconds and we may very well be able to flip it. Yeah, not yet, but getting close. Ah, crap, I hope I didn't ruin it. My bad. Well, I'm the one who's going to eat it. That's all I can say. Besides, once I flip it, I've got something special planned anyway, because that is when we top our grilled cheese. What do we have here? I'm a pro at mayo toast. Yeah. Well, my evil laugh, I'm not kidding when I would like you to be here doing this, especially so that I can be sure this doesn't burn. Mayo toast is so I know this is a patty melt, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this would also be considered a po' boy. I think that's a completely different kind of sandwich. I'd actually have to look it up. That shows you my northern Yankee heritage, where I really don't have in memory what a po' boy is. Watch that bread, I'm telling you. Yeah, I believe it. I've already learned my lesson in that respect. So, see how it looks now. Still not yet, unfortunately. Meanwhile, this one. Oh yeah, this one's definitely done, in fact. All right, so you're right. I just caught it at just the right moment there. Well, that shows this is heating unevenly, unfortunately, and that's because I've got myself a crappy stove here. So thank you for the warning on that. However, now that we've done that, it's time to get down to brass tacks. What we have here is a very simple special sauce, which is a combination of mustard, ketchup, mayo, and just a little bit of Worcestershire sauce mixed into it. So we will add that. And once we do that, we start adding. Let me see. Now at this point, what do we add? Where is it? Here it is. Next we add more cheese. If I can undo this thing correctly. There we go. More cheese. And then on top of that, a few of these caramelized onions. Oh, yeah. And from there, I'd better check this on the other side now. Be sure it hasn't burned. Thank you for the warning about the bread, by the way. Oh, yeah, just barely scorched. And I think we will leave it at that. However, at this point, from here, we get to put on the patty. So far, so good. And that's definitely going to press this down as well. So I'm betting in just a few more seconds, I could probably even take this one off. Mayo toast is po. Yeah, po. Not just poor, but po. I have to say, yes, like it or not, I did grow up a privileged, nerdy white boy here in the northern U.S. We were still poor in our way, but we were poor, but we weren't po. Of course, the nice thing about being po is that po folks came up with some wonderful recipes, mayo toast being one of them. So I'm definitely not getting into politics. Oh yeah, this is done at this point. There's one. Oh yeah, man, I just barely managed to get through that too. So thank you for your help there. However, there's one. We've got one patty melt. So now at this point, all we have to do is the next one. Try not to scorch this, and then we will be ready. However, at this point, I think I might want to see if my roommate might be up, because if so, she may be able to enjoy a burger. Okay, let me put this aside here. And let's get to the next one. So, now that I've had a little bit of practice here, and thank you again for your advice on this, everyone. Here we go again. This time I definitely got to watch this griddle, because I'd say at this point this griddle is definitely hotter than it was a few minutes ago. In fact, maybe I should even turn down the heat a little bit. So, here's one. Yeah, this time it's sizzling. The other time it was not sizzling, so it's definitely hotter, so I really better watch myself this time. This time it's only going to take a few seconds to do this, and not that several minutes that it took the first one. Of course, that's the thing about cooking in cast iron. You've got to learn to cook careful and fast. So, and there's the other. Really nothing to it, though, as long as you're careful. Gotta go, everyone. Take care. My evil laugh. Thank you for your advice on the mayo. We weren't poor, but my folks had a poor mentality, so same difference. You know, you get a lot of washing and wiping with Crisco tonight. Yeah, no kidding. And yeah, for the record, when I talk about things like being poor or po, please, in no way, of course, am I dissing anyone. As I said, if anything, I'm just really pretty much, ouch, on one hand telling like it is, and on the other hand, I'm not putting anybody down. I'm just, I mean, hey, when we grew up, we were on food stamps as well, even though we were living up here in northern New England. So we knew that very well. And believe me, there's no shame of being on food stamps, but not then, not now. I always remember one little story from my mom. I forget if I've told this one in this live or not. And yes, I'm keeping an eye on the bread too. Oh, speaking of keeping an eye on the bread, I better butter or mayo the other side quickly. But anyway, the story was that she was standing in line at the supermarket once as we were young. This was at IGA. I don't know if anybody remembers IGA, but yeah, she had all of the necessities, and she was paying for it with food stamps, at which point the lady behind her got all huffy and said, "Oh, you're paying for butter with food stamps. Well, believe me, I can't afford butter, and yet, whereas you welfare folks are able to afford butter." At which point, Mom turned around to her and said, "Well, no, actually, to tell the truth, this is to go on the swordfish to feed my cat." So, yeah. And I probably should not go into any more detail about that day. In fact, I should probably flip this around right now, because I suspect... Oh yeah, here we go again. I really have got to watch myself on this. Turning this down right now. Let's put on some more of this sauce. Got to do this nice and fast. No arguments or no more talking. So, Yeah, my problem is trying to do this live, so that's why I can't concentrate on this toast the way I'm supposed to. I'm heckling myself by saying that, by the way. And a little bit of that. A little bit more cheese. I think I goofed, in fact. I think last time I put the cheese on and then the caramelized onions. Oh, well. It's a patty melt. It's not rocket science. Besides, this way there will be 2 layers of cheese. And I'm sure everybody's just going to be so upset about that. And here comes the other patty. Let's see what it looks like now. Yep, definitely. Notice it's only taken a few seconds this time. This time I've learned my lesson because there we go. Made it. Haha. It's a little better at least. So there we go. We got ourselves not 1 but 2 patty melts. And yeah, all I can say again, when you consider it's got 2 layers of cheese on it, it's got those caramelized onions, and it's got a little bit of special sauce in it too, as well as the Texas toast. So yeah, once you've had a patty melt, you will not regret it or forget it. But now that we've done that, as I mentioned, let's turn this other burner back on. Now we're going to do something a little bit different, folks. As somebody says, extra onions. You lost me with that one. Okay, sorry about that. Why doesn't bread like warm weather? Things get toasty. My dad would purposely burn the bread and then scrape it off. You're cooking like me tonight. Yeah. Well, as I've said a number of times, I am not a professional chef. I'm learning pretty much every time I do this. So, and yeah, now I have to make them to try it. You will not regret it, and you'll probably do a better job than I did. To be fair, yes, I did just barely get mine to the point where the bread started to char, unfortunately, but only just barely. So I'm I'm actually proud of that. However, while we're waiting here, now I think we're going to bring out a little bonus here. Excuse me. This bonus comes from the research I did on patty melts. And research, of course, like any researcher these days, means watching YouTube videos. I came across this really neat video on a patty melt that showed a different way to make it. So that instead of doing the patties, you actually cook the entire ground beef in a pan until it's all separated, and then mix in the cheese and the onions. So I'm going to give that a try, and let's see how this turns out. For that, nothing I can say here, but let's get cooking. For this one, we're not, as I said, we're actually not breaking this. We're actually not shaping this into patties. We're going to be breaking everything up into nice toasty bits. So yeah, this pan had cooled off quite a little bit, so it's not searing hot. However, I do have the heat up, and because, again, this is a nice thick cast iron pan. Oh, and by the way, look at how it's really absorbing all of the toasty bits from the previous batch as well. So notice how nothing's sticking here. We are going to be getting ourselves a nice bit of ground beef in here. Once everything here is all nicely toasted and we are full of, and it's all full of crunchy bits, then we're going to mix in a whole bunch of cheese and those caramelized onions. And the cheese is going to be a binder, and that is what is going to hold everything together. So that is going to be a different kind of patty melt. Especially with that patty melt, we're not even going to use any bread, but instead we're going to make a wrap from it. That is, of course, anybody who wants to hang around and watch at this point. So, very nice pan. Yeah, like I said, that's a Finex. So, bonus time. The toast is done when it starts to smoke. Yeah, little carbon never hurt anyone. Is kind of tasty. I'm waiting for my stargazer. Well, best of luck, Mungo. I have a stargazer, and yeah, as everybody has been saying, there is some difficulty with seasoning it. Yet, I have really enjoyed cooking with it, so I am still not regretting the stargazer, and I like to think you will not regret it either. So, all we can do now is just, yeah, as they said, yeah, again, this is based on the video I saw. For the record, it's one of those bigger foodie channels. I think it's called Guga, G-U-G-A Foods. This guy here, they do a lot of grilling. And he did say that it is going to release a fair amount of liquid, but the liquid will evaporate. So just keep going until you get a pan full of nice crunchy bits. So all we can do is take his word for it and have patience. Well, considering that it did take some patience to make those caramelized onions, all I can do is take his word for it, which is precisely what we will do. And yes, once again, this is a Finex cast iron skillet. I received this in 2014 as a Christmas present. So I have been using this as much as I can for the past 6 years now. I enjoy it a lot. I am very happy to own one of these nice USA-made Finex skillets. And Finex was one of the first of the newer elite cast iron companies. Burrow Furnace, I think, was the first one to come out. I believe Finex came out, yeah, a couple of years after that, and then it was within the next few years after that, between 2015 and 2019 or so, that all of the other new cast iron companies came about. You know, the ones, Field, Stargazer, Butter Pat, Smithy, Grizzly. I'm sure I'm missing one or two, and if anybody wants to add their names, please feel free to do so. I'm not being paid to plug any of these. Is that 80-20? Yes, it is. I always use 80-20 when it comes to cooking ground beef. I have yet to, for really almost any recipe I can think of that does not work with 80-20. So notice, though, it is bubbling off. So again, I guess all we can do is wait for the liquid to evaporate. Or we could cheat and actually drain off some of this liquid, which maybe we'll do that. Because, yeah, that's the other thing about the Finex. As they point out, this 8-sided is one reason is so that these things here can actually pour like pour spouts. So how about let's give that a try and see how well it works or doesn't work. So we'll get out this metal dish once again. Carefully. Pour out some of this liquid. There we go. That actually worked pretty well. Whoops, got a drop on the burner. Still, that seemed to work pretty well. However, at this point, I'm not just browning the ground beef. I am trying to get it so that it's nice and crispy. So we're just going to have to keep going until we've got some crunchy bits here, which I suspect is really not going to take that long. At this point, we can add a little bit of seasoning to this. Not much. So let's throw in a little bit more of this kosher salt. You know, I've really never understood this whole, use your fingers and flake the seasonings from about 2 feet up. I guess it looks nice, but at the same time, there's no reason why I can't just use a pepper grinder and do this. And that's about all we're going to use for seasoning, because that's really all we need. As I said earlier tonight, my real plan is to just let the meat do the talking. Oh man, however, boy, did that ever improve the scent of this. Smell of ground beef in a cast iron pan is one of those smell you can almost never get tired of. And yeah, it does not look like it has released a lot more liquid, so I'd say we're doing pretty nicely here. Although, once again, we're not just looking for browned, we are looking for well done and crispy. So all we can do is keep on going. And then after that, we'll get to the good parts. Let's see. Other than that, what do we got? Something about chain. Just pulling your chain about cooking tonight. Well, no, not to worry, Papa Dan. I mean, I am the first to admit, as I said before, I am just a. Oh yeah, actually, Finex. Let me interrupt. REI, the sports store, REI. Recently, I'm not sure if it's ended yet, had a big sale on Finex pans, talking like maybe about half off or so. In that you could actually get a Finex pan for less than $100. You may want to rush over to their website and see if that is still available or not. I apologize for the very last minute notice here. I had actually seen it and I forgot to mention it until this very moment. But once again, that is REI. They are the sporting goods and camping and outdoor goods store. Anyway, he mentioned where to find a great deal on Finex pans recently on his Instagram, but they've since sold out. Oh, okay, that was the one. Church bazaars, tried yard sales, mostly where I'm at. You can see kids' clothing and toy junk. Yeah, a little white pepper releases flavors too. Can only agree there. Well, we're actually starting to get somewhere now. Yeah, I'd say at this point we are getting past the point where this ground beef is just simply browned. And we are getting close to the point where it's actually cooked. Of course, at the same time, we don't want it to dry out either, especially since we added salt, which, as you know, causes the meat to release some of its liquid. However, it's worth it. I mean, boy, if you could smell this. Just like those caramelized onions, you notice how it's no longer filling the pan. It has actually shrunk quite a bit. So because of that, I think we're getting to the point where we get to do the good stuff. What is the good stuff? The good stuff would be the caramelized onions. And in addition to the caramelized onions, here's where we throw in the cheese. And this time, we're going to use the stuff, the shredded stuff. And here again is where the outcry will start. No, not shredded cheese. You know that shredded cheese contains chemicals. Yeah, actually it does contain chemicals meant especially to keep the cheese from clumping. But frankly, I myself have had very little problem with using that because it is still going to melt and mix in with this ground beef. So I'm sorry if I offended you by saying that. However, I am speaking from experience, also from the fact that I do not like a lot of these foodie fads that talk about silly things like eating healthy and meaning that, well, no, there's nothing wrong with eating healthy. However, it's like, oh, this type of food, this cheap processed food here will poison you. You only have to buy the really, really expensive stuff. No, that's when I start getting sarcastic. I'm not going to get into any more detail about that. That's going to come at another time. And pretty soon, for that matter. And actually, now we're not done. Because, speaking of processed cheese, let's throw in a little bit more of it, shall we? If I could. There it is. We're not done yet. And let's throw in another. Once again, you can give credit, I will give credit, or blame if you prefer, to that foodie channel called Guga Foods, Guga Foods, for coming up with this idea of making a cheesy, well, they call it a patty melt. I really don't think you can call this a patty melt. On the other hand, a pan full of ground beef with cheese and more cheese mixed in, it's definitely not a bad thing at all. Oh, and onions. Can't forget the onions. And while we're doing that, especially since I think we're almost done already. Oh, yeah. As I said, the cheese is going to be a binder to hold it all together like glue. While we're doing that, here they are. Here's the next bit non-standard that we go through. Instead of doing bread, flat bread, well, this is bread, I know, flat bread, but let's throw in a tortilla wrap, shall we? Yeah, at this point, we're probably about ready to go here. Huh. Oh, yeah, I can feel my arteries clogging already. Heart attack in a pan. Yeah, but you'll die with a smile on your face. And quite frankly,